let me know. I typically like to connect my headphones, but of course, prior to the webinar, for whatever reason, they're not connecting. I guess that's just how technology likes to go. So it's all right. We'll carry on. My biggest concern is just to make sure that you guys can all hear me okay. So I'll turn my camera on to introduce myself. My name is Erica. I've been lucky enough to be with Priority Matrix for about 5 years now. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you guys can kind of walk away from it and have, a pretty decent understanding of, why your team might be able to benefit from it, what we want to be able to support you with, and just kind of the overall value that we want to be able to provide for you. So I'm going to flip my camera back off here. I found that when I do a screen share and a PowerPoint and have my Teams open, sometimes the camera can make it a little bit slow. So I'll go ahead and share my screen with you all. I have a quick presentation that I put together actually just to kind of kickstart the webinar and give you guys an idea of what to expect today. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be doing today is just an introduction to Priority Matrix. Before we go ahead and get started with the live demo, I wanted to give you guys all just kind of a quick understanding of what the agenda looks like for today. I'm going to explain what Priority Matrix is. I want to help you all understand who Priority Matrix supports and what that kind of looks like. I also want to help you understand exactly how you can get started, where you need to install it, training that we're going to provide, what your account will look like, anything that you need to know to get started. I'm definitely going to walk you through that. I'm also going to give you that live demo, which I know is probably what brought a lot of you here today. I'm going to probably spend about 10 or 15 minutes actually showing you the Priority Matrix application. And then at the very end, I'm going to save plenty of time to actually do a Q&A. I saw somebody comment that their audio is currently off, and that's actually how it's supposed to be, just to cut back on any background noise. But at the very end, we'll give you a chance to kind of raise your hand, and I'll actually unmute you, and then we can actually talk together and answer any questions that you might have. I also want to let you know that this session is being recorded, so if for whatever reason you have to leave halfway through, don't worry about it. We're going to send you a follow-up email with that recording. So yeah, you'll be able to watch it at your convenience or email it to anybody who you think it might be helpful for. So let's start by looking at this. What is Priority Matrix? So kind of first and foremost, I like to explain Priority Matrix as a project and task management solution. And what this is going to do for you and your organization is hopefully we're going to be able to help you align your priorities across your entire organization. What Priority Matrix also does is it supports you with email management, and we've also added a couple specific features to help you and your team have shorter and more effective meetings. So kind of circling back to that first point, I typically explain it as a project and task management solution, but I don't think that does it justice, because Priority Matrix can do a whole lot more than that. But that is kind of a nice way to wrap up Priority Matrix as a whole and kind of put it in a short phrase there. So who does Priority Matrix support? This is one of the most common questions that I typically get when I am able to talk to people one-on-one, because people want to know, hey, does Priority Matrix support people like me? Are you working with organizations such as ours? And most likely the answer is going to be yes. Priority Matrix is such an incredibly flexible software that we're lucky enough to be able to support all types of verticals, with some examples being construction, biotech, manufacturing, transportation, any specialty industries, and also people in the medical field, and so much more. What it really comes down to, and I was actually explaining this to somebody this morning, is that it's not that Priority Matrix just supports a specific type of organization or a specific type of company. What we're able to do is find it, more or less similar challenges that people are facing and help people with those challenges that have the similar goals. And, email management, for example, you can imagine that pretty much everybody in all industries struggles with that. And that's a common challenge that we're able to help people work through and find value in Priority Matrix for. On top of that, people typically like to know, what role is Priority Matrix typically used for? And we found that it actually works best if all levels of the company are in Priority Matrix, starting from, typically owners, if it's the right size company, down to executives, leaders, managers, and individual contributors. As I mentioned before, Priority Matrix is a super flexible app, and that's what allows each person in different roles to kind of find the value that they need and allow it to support them in the exact way that they need it. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a minute. So a lot of you might be wondering, how do we actually get started with Priority Matrix? The first thing that I like people to understand is Priority Matrix is a multi-platform software, meaning that you're going to be able to use it, hopefully anywhere that you want to. That includes a desktop application for Mac and Windows, a mobile app, an integration with some of the Office applications such as Microsoft Teams and your Outlook 365. And then we also have a web application, which you can use on your desktop, or sometimes people actually like to use that on their mobile app as well. All of these platforms are going to sync automatically. So, if you're similar to me, you like to be out and about, maybe you have dogs you want to take on a walk, but you don't want to be out of the loop. You want to see notifications coming through on your phone. You can actually send updates back through the mobile app, and that's going to sync back with all the other applications and platforms that you're using it on. So what do our goals look like for you with Priority Matrix? And again, as I mentioned at the start of this webinar, I've been with this company for about 5 years, and I've been lucky enough to be able to talk to some of our first-time users, those who are just getting their eyes on the system, and also people who have been using Priority Matrix for a couple of years. And what I've come to understand is that there are similar goals that people have with Priority Matrix, and that's what we want to be able to help you with. So first and foremost, one of the biggest goals is to help you and your team create just one central place for that team collaboration. There's a phrase that really stuck to me, which Pablo actually shared with me a couple of weeks ago, that was, nothing kills productivity more than context switching. And ever since I heard it, I just honestly, I can't get it out of my head because I think it's so true for myself. And really a lot of people that come to Priority Matrix, they just want everything in one central place. Once you're able to get everything in just one central location, we hope that that can help you increase your productivity. Again, when you have everything in one place, you're going to be able to get things done a lot faster. Lastly, we've been seeing this coming up more and more frequently, which is people want an automated process. People want to get things done as efficiently as possible. And if you're able to take out some of that manual work, manual email management, or, deadline updating, whatever it might be, we want to help you set up that automated process to speed things along and help you spend time really on what matters the most. So that's, just kind of an introduction of what we'll be looking at today, what you can expect out of Priority Matrix, and, how I'm hoping to help you today. So what we'll do now is I'm actually going to pull up my Priority Matrix, and we'll take a look at the live demo here. All right, so as I mentioned, just in a couple slides back, you can use Priority Matrix on multiple different platforms. What I'm going to be showing you today is actually Priority Matrix integrated through the Teams platform. By no means do you have to use it through here. However, organizations who are pushing for Teams usage and are, just simply comfortable in the Teams platform, this has become a really common place to at least kind of get started with it. You'll see down in my toolbar amongst probably too many applications that I have pinned down here, but I have the little Priority Matrix app. I'll make this bigger just for you to see it for a minute. This is going to be the Mac desktop application. You can also install it for Windows. So I want to start by explaining just kind of the overall layout of what we're looking at here. On the left-hand side, you'll see that I have the Priority Matrix app installed. And if you are going to be using it through Teams, I like to suggest you pin it open. This just ensures that it's going to stay here and be super easily accessible for you. And then at the top, I have the My Projects tab selected, and this is going to be kind of giving you access to the full featured Priority Matrix project management application. What we've done with Priority Matrix is given you the ability to essentially create different projects. And what these projects represent are, it can change a lot by organization. Some people have projects where there's a very specific start date and due date, and it has a specific duration of time with very certain priorities in there. That's an example of, a very set in stone project. Whereas a lot of people, and kind of similar to myself, I can kind of resonate with this example more, which is I like to categorize my different priorities and action items under kind of a similar topic, which just so happens to be called a project. But, don't let that terminology kind of scare you away from just kind of the general structure that we have set up here. Each person who you're using Priority Matrix with will actually be able to set up projects and, kind of get the action items put in there. Talking about projects, something I always like to highlight is while this is a team collaboration tool, we also support your privacy. And what I mean by that is when you create a project, and even if you have, let's say, 100 people on your Priority Matrix license, that doesn't mean that everybody can see that project. You would have to intentionally share the projects with your teammates, which would allow them visibility and allow them to collaborate in it. So by all means, feel free to set up projects and keep them just for yourself and, share them with your teammates when you're ready to take that step. So I'm going to open up one of these projects here so we can take a closer look at kind of the roots of Priority Matrix, which is based off of the Eisenhower Matrix. And what we want to help you do with using these 4 quadrants is help you be able to really easily prioritize and work with your team and understand, hey, here's everything we really need to get done first. Here are the next steps, the later priorities that we can kind of set aside, whether it's just till tomorrow or maybe a couple weeks into the future. Again, every project is going to look a little bit different, but the idea of using the quadrants in general is to help you really easily prioritize with your teammates and, everything that's more important versus things that can wait a little bit longer. So in this specific example, this would be an example for a company who was working in construction, planning a new project to take on, a new build rather. And in this case, the company that I was working with found it to be really fitting to break them up by phases. But again, each project is going to be a little bit different. So on the right-hand side, you can actually rename these quadrants to be a perfect fit for the project that you're working in. I always like to suggest putting quadrant 4 as emails and notes. It's just a way that I've seen people to be pretty successful with this. And reason being is because I'm actually going to show you how you can integrate emails into your projects. And we'll want to give you a place to kind of rely on finding those emails and placing them. On the right-hand side, I also want to point out that it says members. These are people who I've specifically added to this project. There's 3 others, including myself, and it's also a place where you can continue to add more people to the project, giving them full visibility and access into just this specific project. It's not rolling over to any of the other projects you have. Kind of a side note, actually stepping away from what I have written down for my webinar notes here, but I also want to point out that you can create custom templates. So in this case, for a construction company bringing on a new project, it's likely the steps here are often going to be repeated for other similar projects that they bring on. So whether you just want to rename the quadrants or you want to go as far as listing out, let's say steps 1 through 10 and actually putting in due dates there, you can then save your project as a template so you don't have to continuously recreate this project. And you can actually share that template with your teammates, which can be a really nice way to kind of set up some consistency across the different projects you're working on. So enough about projects, let's jump in and look at it actually on a task level, which in my opinion is where Priority Matrix can become incredibly effective. You'll notice after I clicked on this item, on the right-hand side, it brought up a set of item details. This is where you can really get in there and you and your teammates can start to set up all of the details, everything that's important for this task to, ultimately get it completed on time and do a good job on it. What you can do is you can set your due date. by simply clicking on due, you can go ahead and manually set that due date. You can also put a start date if you want to have a kind of a more set up duration of this item. I always like to point out updating the progress. What I typically do when I'm working on a task is I'll update the progress, and then I'll say, hey team, here is what I did today. And I'll just send them a quick little comment, quick little update. So if my manager looks at this item, they're going to pretty much automatically understand where I'm at on this task, give everybody a little status update, keep everybody on the same page all the time. Not only is this chat a nice place to share updates, you can also definitely share item updates or status updates in the notes as well. It's going to be a place where you can add a little checklist if you want to. But the chat is also a place where I can communicate with my team. So maybe I need to say, hey, Cody, can you finish this task for me? Send that comment, and then it's already delegated to him, so that's going to be perfect. Communicating within the priority matrix action items is, number one, going to help you stay away from emailing, texting, even having phone calls with your teammates. And number two, it's going to provide a history for you. So if a year from now I need to go back and figure out what the process was, what exactly happened with this specific step in this new build, it's going to be incredibly easy for me to find this compared to an email that's maybe been forwarded back and forth a couple dozen times. I also want to point out that inside the resources, you can add files. If you're using Microsoft Teams in the Office environment, these files will also be uploaded to your SharePoint. I know that that's pretty critical for a lot of people who are Office users. You can link to other items and different projects. This will also be where you set up your dependencies, which we'll look at more in just a minute. And then you can also link resources, different HTMLs, different websites, whatever it might be that you find important, you can link it all right there. So just to kind of recap, there's a couple smaller things that we didn't look at here, but I want you all to just basically understand that when you think of team collaboration, teamwork, making sure something is finished on time, we've really done our best to make sure that any information you may need to share with your teammates, you have a space to do that within the item details. One more thing I want to point out actually is that if there's several people working on this item together, it's not limited to just saying, hey, you're the owner of this item. You're actually able to get other people involved in this task as well. What's nice about that is now if I go in and maybe I update the progress here, all of these people have actually been notified directly about these changes. So again, an example from my side is if I have a really important task I'm working on and I know for sure I'm going to be the owner of it, but I want my managers to be up to date with it, I'll just add them as a follower. And then whenever I make a change, they're going to be notified about that update. So talking about notifications and updates, the next question people typically have is, okay, well, where do we actually see these updates that are coming through? How do I see the changes that my team has made? There's going to be actually a couple different places they are able to see these alerts and these notifications. The first one will actually be directly in the Priority Matrix application under the Home view, which is in the top left corner, and then under Alerts. So this will include anything, including a new due date that has occurred. For example, on the right-hand side, you can see this item became due at 7 a.m. this morning. If an item is completed, maybe there's a new comment or a new progress update, really anything that needs your attention will come up under these alerts. And then as you can see, it's actually pretty nice just to click through and get more context on the right-hand side if you feel that's necessary. If you're ready to kind of start fresh for the day, you can clear your finished items, or you could actually clear all notifications if you wanted to do that. Another example of notifications that you can get is actually directly through your inbox. If you want to be getting emails for any type of update that has changed, there's a couple different email preferences you can toggle through to really have those be effective and valuable for you. Again, for me, I love to have the mobile app notifications because if you just step away from your computer just for even 10 minutes, maybe I'm a little obsessive about it, but I really like to see all of the changes that are happening all the time. The mobile app notifications are going to be great for that. So taking a step back, hopefully this has made sense so far. And again, probably in just about 5 minutes, I'm going to be able to open this up and answer some questions that you might have. But the next question that people typically have is, okay, so, let's say we have 2 dozen projects and it's working great. We're able to see the priorities, we're able to communicate, we're working together effectively. But maybe at the start of the day or even at midway through the day, you want to see, hey, what do I have on my plate for today across all of my projects? And quite frankly, most people don't want to have to click through every single project to see their priorities. So what we've actually done here is we've created what's called your agenda view. And what happens in agenda is we're looking across all of these projects here at the top of any project you're part of in Priority Matrix for that matter. And it's going to show you all of your action items that you're the owner of. So here's for yesterday. Here's my items on my plate for today. It'll show you tomorrow, and it'll actually break down the next 7 days, finishing up with your overdue items. So if you're one of those people that gets into the office, or like a lot of us now working from home, and you start your work day and you just don't really know where to get started, the agenda is honestly kind of like your own personal assistant. It's going to help you get on track and start working where you need to. You'll notice that it's actually including my Teams meetings as well. Here's the webinar we're in together right now. I have another one later today if you want to hear this all again. But it's nice because now I can understand my priorities I have to get done, meetings that I'm expected to be in, and any emails that I prioritize as well. Everything I have to work on is right here in front of me. There's one other view that I want to show you, which is actually quite similar to the agenda view, but it gives you the option to kind of see what your teammates are working on as well. So I just switched to the search view, and pretty much automatically I always filter based off of my due dates. That's just kind of how my brain works, but everybody's a little bit different. We have a bunch of different filters for how you actually see these items here. But what's great about the search view is, again, kind of talking about the concept of, hey, what do I have to work on today? What are my upcoming priorities and due dates? This is going to give you a really nice clear-cut list of basically all of your upcoming deadlines. From a management perspective, it's been increasingly popular to use this view to kind of tune in and make sure that, and it's not necessarily micromanaging, because honestly, everybody that I talk to who uses Priority Matrix says, hey, we don't want to be micromanagers. We just simply want to make sure things aren't slipping through the cracks. And that's exactly what the search view can do for you. Shows you what they're working on. You can kind of generally make sure it's not being forgotten about by evaluating if the progress has been updated or not. And if you happen to have a question or want to make a comment, maybe you say, this looks great, let's review tomorrow. You're actually able to do that just on the right-hand side. So again, that's going to be your search view. Something that's really unique and special about using Priority Matrix through Microsoft Teams is actually the ability to kind of tap into your Office 365 information. To kind of elaborate on that more, at the bottom of the screen where it says Office 365, this is actually going to show you all of your emails, all of your meetings, and any files shared through Teams. So when you're ready to find something relevant to a client or a task or a project you've been working on, and I know firsthand that I have felt this dread in the past if I have to look through emails and notes and all sorts of different things to find what I'm looking for, we can actually just type it in here now. I'll try the word meeting because I'm sure something will come up. Now I'm able to find anything relevant in Priority Matrix and through my Office data as well. Makes it really easy to find what you're looking for. And my favorite saying is switching context kills productivity. So hopefully this will be kind of the first step in the right direction of keeping you working in just one central place. All right, so last but definitely not least, I have about 2 more things that I would like to show you all. One of them, however, is actually pretty critical for most people who start using Priority Matrix. I'm going to bring my Outlook over here. This is my Outlook for desktop on my Mac. It's going to be the same for your Windows, and you can also use the Outlook web application as well. Same goes for your Outlook mobile app. So you really can't escape priority matrix once you start using it, but trust me, that's a good thing. What you're going to be able to do is when you get an email that's super high priority, or maybe you're just thinking, hey, I can't really afford to forget about this task or this email, you're now going to be able to use the Outlook integration to really quickly prioritize it and get it alongside all the other priorities you have to work on. A quick look at this would be this example. So here's an email that I have opened up. We'll rename this. So we'll just say new email for webinar, because trust me, I've used this example about 100 times and I want this one to be able to stand out to us today. So we'll rename the email. You're going to be able to prioritize it into that project that makes the most sense for you. Let's see, we'll just put it into corporate project. We'll be able to find that one pretty quickly. You can pick the quadrant which you need to prioritize it into. Like I said a couple minutes ago, I like to use quadrant 4 for my emails. You can really quickly set your due date. So again, if this so happens to slip your mind, I mean, let's be honest, it's the holiday season. I'm sure that most of us have a lot on our plate. We're not only thinking about work today. So go ahead and do yourself a favor, set yourself a due date here. So if you forget about it, it's no big deal. Priority Matrix will actually remind you to circle back and handle this email. We'll go ahead and create action item. And what happens here, I'll just show you super quickly, is it's actually giving you a live version of this item. So if I want to make an update here, maybe I want to delegate this to one of my teammates, and I change my mind, I don't want to be the owner of this email. This is a live item, so any changes here are syncing back to your priority matrix. And this is really great because for those of you who feel like, hey, it's inevitable, I'm going to spend a lot of time in my Outlook, that's okay. We wanted you to be able to provide updates and stay in touch with your teammates, even if you're spending, a couple hours a day working through Outlook. The very last thing I'll say about this Outlook integration, and I hate to be repetitive, but I think it is an important thing to at least mention, is you can actually upload these emails to a task that you already have created as well, to avoid having kind of duplicated tasks in your priority matrix. All right, so hopping back to my priority matrix within Teams. For those of you who are looking for a couple more advanced features, I definitely want to point out our Gantt chart here. This is really helpful for project managers, those of you who are looking to kind of plan out the entire duration of a project. And I'm very happy to let you all know that we've recently added dependencies. So you're able to kind of plan for those unforeseen barriers and make sure that everything is indeed able to be completed on time. Last, but lastly, I swear, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for the Q&A, but I can't finish up this webinar without showing you guys, in my opinion, one of the most valuable features in Priority Matrix. People constantly ask me, hey, why should we use this system compared to, project management tool X, Y, and Z? And there's no denying that there's hundreds of options out there, but something else that's super unique to Priority Matrix is our one-on-one view. And what happens here is we designed this to help you and your teammates have shorter and more effective meetings. So what's going to happen is you're able to actually select the person who you're having this meeting with, and Priority Matrix will automatically generate this shared priority list for you, looking across all of those dozens of projects you're working on together and just saying, hey, here's the priorities that are relevant for the two of you. Here's what you likely need to discuss during your meeting. And you can also add a new shared task also. So let's just say holiday office hours updates. And we'll say this needs to be done in 2 weeks. Kind of minor, but hey, it's something that a lot of people might forget about, and it could be pretty important. So you can decide who the owner is going to be. Choose a shared project between the two of you to prioritize it into. And when we hit add, we'll see it's actually automatically added to our shared priority list. So again, that's just a perfect example to show you that this will give you the agenda you need to have a quick meeting, and it will help you keep track of what's discussed during the meeting so you don't forget about it as soon as the meeting ends. Similar to the search view, this also taps into your shared your shared office priorities, meaning shared emails, calendar events that you're both included in, and then any shared files through SharePoint that may have been passed along between the two of you. All right, so looking at my notes here, I think that's all, and I kind of chuckle at that because I know that we just covered like a million and one different features here, but those are really the key things that I think are at least kind of important concepts to be aware of when you're getting started with Priority Matrix. So what we'll do now is I'll stop sharing my screen just momentarily. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the conversation. So for those of you who have questions, we have plenty of time to, probably get around to all of them. So if you want to, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, or you can actually raise your hand by using the top toolbar of this meeting, and then I can actually unmute you and, hopefully we can communicate together and answer those questions. All right, so I'll give you a couple minutes to think of those questions. I know firsthand, just from working with so many people who are new to Priority Matrix, that the questions usually come when you're trying to install it, or hey, you want to get your team on board. So you may not have questions immediately. Let's see. Looks like we have one. All right, John, I'm going to do my best to, let's see, allow Mike. All right, John, you should be able to talk now. Go ahead and give it a try. Actually, you're going to need to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to talk.
Hi, Erica. How you doing?
Hey, John. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Thanks for all the information. So, yeah, I mean, this is a really cool concept here. We're looking to get into it and bring it onto our company. My question is, do you guys have any tutorials available? Because we're just going to be getting started into the actual setup phase of getting everything put together to work for personally for us. Do you guys have any online tutorials to start stuff up, or anything in addition to this today?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a really good question that I would love to answer for you. So all I would say is get comfortable with my voice, because I'm basically the one that makes all of our YouTube tutorials, so you'll probably recognize me in there. But we have everything from 1 minute getting started videos to super advanced use case specific tutorials. We've really done our best to make those resources readily available for you. So just on our YouTube channel alone, you should be able to find quite a bit there, which I'll definitely email to you, John, right after this meeting. But in addition to that, I also want to let you know, for teams and companies who are getting up and running, I can actually work with you personally, and we can kind of talk one-on-one, and then I can help onboard your team as well. So there's definitely more hands-on support available as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Does that answer your question, or anything else I can answer for you?
Yes, absolutely. And then some. I appreciate it.
Okay, awesome, John. I'll follow up with you just later today, and we can kind of get started working through this together.
Sounds good, Erica.
Just a quick comment, John, to add to that. The way we generate a lot of our content is actually as a follow-up to some of our customer questions. We find a use case to be especially interesting or unique that we haven't covered yet. Often we make a semi-custom video for the customer who asked the question, and then we just reuse it for the rest of our audience. So anything that you don't find in our documentation or existing tutorials and videos, let us know, because it might be an interesting gap for us to cover.
Great, much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. I'm going to have to mute you again. No offense. That was a wonderful question. All right, let's see. I don't see any other questions coming through here. I actually did see a comment that came through the chat. Let's see. Yeah, so Grace, I see your question here, kind of talking about, the different plans that we offer. So there's definitely subscriptions available for those of you who are just starting with a small team, all the way up to more of a company-wide enterprise deployment. So just to really quickly go over it, the Essential license is set up mostly just for individual users, maybe 1 or 2 people. And then the Pro and especially the Business are geared towards the team users. The Business is going to offer things such as the Gantt chart, productivity insight reports, more hands-on training, even customization with the enterprise license if needed. So there are a couple different tiers that kind of set up to help people grow from individual users all the way up to, you know, company-wide rollouts. Let's see, and then I'm using the app version of Priority Matrix. How do you chat? And Grace, I'm not sure I completely understand your second question. If it's okay with you, I'll send you a follow-up email, and I can actually even give you a call later today to answer kind of your second question there about the chat.
I believe this might be referring to the item chat. You can select an item and just chat with followers.
I see. Yeah, so within every single action item in a project, in the item details specifically, there's going to be a little section that says chat, and that's going to be where you can actually communicate with your teammates. Let's see. Looking through a couple other questions. Kristen, I'm going to read yours right now. I'll just read it out loud so everybody can, you know, kind of understand the context here. It says, my concern is making sure we alleviate maintenance of info and projects, not add to the load. Totally understand that. What would you suggest as far as using PM with Outlook and Teams so we aren't going back and forth and to organize? So the first thing I would say, and I don't know if this is really going to resonate with you, but depending on what your load kind of looks like coming in through emails, to exactly like you said, alleviate maintenance would be maybe we can work together to set up some type of automated email process. So in other words, you're basically automatically going to be prioritizing your emails instead of having to do that manually. What that's going to allow you to do is, of course, cut back on the time spent in Outlook, but it will help you focus on that one central place, which would be using Priority Matrix through Teams. So that'll keep you out of Outlook a little bit. And then once you're actually working in Microsoft Teams, and this is actually a good excuse to share my screen again and show you guys another use case for using this in Teams. So what I showed you for the majority of the demo today was using kind of the full featured Priority Matrix app in Teams. But what I definitely do understand is that a lot of you are spending time in your chats and you're spending time working through channels. And what we came to understand after integrating with Teams for a little bit of time was that people actually want to be able to use Priority Matrix through their chats and through their channels. Even something as small as just opening up the Priority Matrix app in Teams, it can be a little bit distracting. So what you can do is you can actually add project tabs to a chat with just one person, or if it's a project that's relevant to more of a channel and you guys are working together and you want everybody in this channel to be aware of this project, you can actually pin it, you can actually pin it to the top here. So this is a great way to, if you're thinking, hey, I want to focus on working through my channels and we still need Priority Matrix, it's still going to be available for you right here. I would also like to add that you can click on these items. It's going to be fully functional, and it will again sync back to that full Priority Matrix version when you want to scoot back and use it through there. Since we have this opened, and I do think it would be valuable to share with everybody, is that if you're working with external collaborators, adding Priority Matrix through a channel and through a chat is one of the most common ways we're seeing people really easily share project information and collaborate with people in different companies. Priority Matrix isn't going to provide, and it's not going to place any barriers, rather. So I could share a project with all of you. We could work together. You can definitely work across domains, if you will, through Priority Matrix. Another example that I want to share with you would be in the case that it's more of, hey, I just want to share with my client what we're working on. I want them to see this timeline, but you know, we definitely can't have them updating the project. That's when the read-only version comes into play. You're able to share projects again through this channel or through a chat in what's called a read-only. So they're not going to be able to make changes, but they are actually able to see the full timeline, and they can actually utilize the Gantt chart as well. So through Teams, this is a really popular way to stay through the channel and also interact with those external collaborators. So thank you for that question, Kristen. I hope that that was helpful. And if you have any other questions, I'll be following up with all of you later on to make sure that I can get those answered. Perfect. And then another thing I wanted to add is that to get started, we do offer a free 2-week trial for you. So you're really going to be able to get in there and kind of start testing it out. Let's see, Calvin, I do see your hand. So we'll go back to the list here. All right, so I unmuted, or rather I allowed your mic, and now Calvin, you can actually unmute yourself and talk.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So I have a few questions here. Hopefully they're pretty quick so I don't take up too much time. The chat function, so I assume that anything that goes in there shows up in alerts, but I was wondering if like in Teams, if I do the @ symbol before somebody's name, it'll like call them out specifically. I was wondering if there's a similar function or if you can like tag people using the chat function.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it has actually come up before. People have asked that in the past. It's a little bit different than in Teams. Like if I were to say @Calvin and type my comment, I definitely know what you mean when it comes through in Teams. It kind of draws to your attention. We're still working on getting that feature added. One thing I would say is what you can do in what we do here at Appfluence is you can actually just delegate the item to somebody to kind of get their attention. And, even if that item is only assigned to them for like 5 minutes, just to say, hey, Pablo, here's the comment. I'm assigning this to you to really, kind of throw this comment at you. The item can really easily be delegated back to somebody else super quickly. So it's not like permanently assigned to them. But I would say that's kind of the closest way to get to using kind of that ideology and kind of pinning the comment to somebody specifically.
Okay, got
Does
it.
that
Good.
make sense?
Yep, it does. Thank you. The next one, so you can manually adjust the progress. Is that always manually adjusted, or is there any kind of like automation, like 3 out of these 4 tasks are done, so it's going to say is 75%?
Yeah, so that's also a good question. And right now it's just going to be a manual update. So the progress is just kind of, an estimate just to kind of let people know generally where you're at with the item. But unfortunately, right now it's not going to be automatically updating the progress when you, for example, check off items next to it.
That's what I figured, and that's kind of hard to automate because you have no way of knowing if one thing is worth 10% or 25%. So the integration with Outlook and the option to like add emails in or assign them to places in Priority Matrix, does that leave the emails in your inbox afterwards? Does it delete them? Is there an option to have it do either one?
Great question. So when you take an email and prioritize it from Outlook into PM, it's going to leave that email in your inbox. And what happens is I can actually just share this example really quickly. It's leaving it in your inbox because it's going to create a link for you to get back to that email super easily when you're ready to, respond or do whatever you need. So for example, this email here, on the right-hand side, you'll see this link. If I click on this, it's going to take me right back to that email, and the email will still be in your inbox. It's not going to automatically put it in a folder or even delete it by any means. It'll still be right where you left it in your inbox.
Okay.
Calvin, one thing I wanted to add that is relating to your first question, actually, which was, I don't remember exactly how you worded it, but you said, there's no way for the system to know like how much time was spent on an item, and that kind of makes it tough to automatically update the progress. But I want to point out the effort here, which does kind of allow you to say, hey, here's how much time I've spent working on this item. And we have 2 different reports that I'm kind of thinking of right now. The first one would be a workload management report, which would let you see on a per user basis. And I believe it's either like daily or weekly. You can see how many effort hours are assigned to each person based off of kind of the, the sum of all the items that they're working on. So the effort does, again, let you kind of say how much time you're spending on the item. The other report I'm thinking of is one of our productivity insight reports, and I might kind of butcher how I'm explaining this, but essentially it'll give you a sum of each quadrant, and it will tell you, out of the whole project, how much time or how much effort is being spent on a per quadrant basis, and that's going to be based off of the effort hours that you put onto the items.
Okay, that does make sense, and that's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
The one final question I had, and I think you kind of already answered this. So whether you're using like the web standalone or the app in Teams, is it the same like function and interface in all of those?
Yeah, so that's also a really good question. So the Teams integration here that we've been looking at is 100% identical to the web application at prioritymatrix.com that, again, you can use on your phone or on your desktop. I can actually pull up, I can actually pull up the desktop version here. This is my desktop for Mac. It's slightly different, but it's still going to have all the same functionalities in the sense that here's all of our projects, here's all the action items, and when I click on it, the details will be on the right-hand side. So functionality is about, I would say, like 99% the same. If you're looking for the most in-depth reporting that we have, it's going to be available through the desktop version. However, there's also pros about using it through Microsoft Teams, which was the cool Office 365 view down here. Again, since this is the same as the web version, it's not limited to this view just in Teams, but this here won't be available through the desktop version simply because just kind of how the back end setup is. So yeah, again, there's not really going to be any major differences. It'll just kind of depend on what you're looking to do for the day or the reporting that you might need to get out of it.
Got it. Thank you for showing the different views. That's very
Sure.
helpful.
Cool. Well, thank you for your questions. I'm sure those helped a lot of other people on the meeting as well. All right, let's see. I see one more comment here. Okay, I'll take one last call for questions. On my side, I have, at least 15 more minutes. So if somebody does have a question, I'm happy to answer that for you. Before we start losing people here, I would like to ask you if you have just an extra minute. I'm going to send out a follow-up email with a survey asking for your feedback, kind of how I did today, what else you would be looking to see in our next webinar, and just kind of generally if this was helpful for you or not. So that will just take 1 minute, and I would really, really appreciate that feedback. It's super helpful. And for the next webinar, I hope to see you joining. Then, it can kind of help us build off of that and have more effective webinars as we go. Let's see, Kristen, I see one more question. I had a 2-week trial, but didn't have a chance to use it. That's no problem. I'm more than happy to get that extended for you. And we can definitely work together to make sure for the next 2 weeks that you can really get in there and, kind of start to use it as you were hoping to. All right. Well, I think that does it for us today. Let's see. Pablo, was there anything else that you wanted to add that I might be forgetting as we wrap up the webinar today?
No, I think you covered quite a bit of content. So maybe if anybody has further questions, we can follow up through email.